My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it. Do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and beer.
Years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Saying community policing, right? What about community dispatching?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch with me, Ashley, the Raspy Dispatcher.
And you've got Anna and Kacey from the 911 Delta Tethered for Life podcast.
And if you are confused listening to either podcast, it's because we are doing a joint episode.
Yeah.
Super excited. It's the first time I've ever done a joint recording like this. And I'm super excited to virtually meet you two, hear about their podcast, and share some stories.
Yes, indeed. We're excited too.
Awesome.
Yeah. We've not done a joint episode either. We've been on another podcast, but we've not done one together. And I always enjoy your content. So
that's what I told her earlier. Yes.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys reaching out and including me. I mean, we definitely need more dispatches, right? But we need more dispatch podcasts because we all have a story to share.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And we need more dispatchers to keep doing it past, that 10-year mark.
Yeah, no, for sure. We need more stuff. We need, so many voices. We all have something to say. And I mean, how did you folks even get into dispatch? What was that story like?
Well, I don't really have a fascinating story about it. I just, my kids went to the same babysitter, and all of their parents, basically all the moms, I should say, were dispatchers. And I was like, well, let me just give it a whirl. And I failed the critical testing the first go round, had to wait a whole year before I could reapply. And then I passed and did it for 16 years after that.
Hey, 16 years is no joke. And the fact that you went back after failing that critical, because I think, I talk to a lot of aspiring dispatchers, and a lot of folks do say I took it, I didn't pass it, and get really discouraged, but it's just genuinely a hard test, especially if you've never taken it before.
It is. I failed by 1 point. And then for the agency that I applied for, which I knew folks there as well, that you had to wait a year before they would let you reapply. Of course, at this point in time, they're so short-staffed now, I don't think that's really the case anymore.
But see, that's a big issue, right? With a lot of our centers that use critical as a pass-fail, it's we're putting potential applicants back in the drawer because of 1 point. I mean, I think that's probably a more common situation than we might want to admit in this line of work, that we're passing up on good people just because of 1 point. It's crazy to me.
That is crazy. And 1 point, and then you have to wait a whole year for 1 point. Why can't you retake it in 2 weeks? I mean, especially if you've never done it before, it is a difficult test. It's not meant to be easy. So if you have no idea, if they've not gotten into Ashley's course, the stuff that you teach, they don't have any idea what to expect, right? They're just, out there
cold calling it.
Right. And so I got into it kind of because I studied sports medicine and athletic training in college, and then realized that career was not going to let me ride my horses and do horse shows like I wanted to do. And so I had gone to working in a physical therapy clinic, and I was kind of bored. And I had done volunteer EMS when I graduated from high school. And I had 2 clients that were dispatchers at this PT clinic, and they were we're hiring, because it's dispatch and they're always hiring. I didn't know that at the time, but we're hiring, you should apply. And I actually applied at their agency and then another agency. And that agency, they did not use critical. It was their own test. And I swear to you, it's a bigger area, and they have this big sort of auditorium in their public safety building, and there was like 150 people in there.
Jeez.
And the first thing they did was everybody sat down they gave you a desk and like piece of paper to write on, and they played through the loudspeaker system like numbers, letters, words, whatever, and you had to write the stuff down. And then they took all the papers and graded them, and you hung around. And this was like a 3-hour ordeal, because you hung around. Then they posted the list of people that passed that part.
Oh my God. It's like,
and then you went, it was like a 3-part thing. And everyone got progressively more difficult with hearing and, processing information, whatever, until they finally did like a panel interview if you made it that far. So it's like a 3-hour process. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I didn't know it was that serious. The other agency,
wow.
they use critical. And so when I went in to take that, I was like, well, God, this is kind of easy compared to that.
True. That'll taking it, man.
Oh.
So
like traditional testing? No, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah. No, it was crazy. And both agencies actually offered me a position. I took the one that was smaller and closer to home. And it was funny because Kacey and I, we didn't work at the same agency in the beginning, but we were in the same dispatcher basic class at the Criminal Justice Academy. We started at the same time, and then we ended up working together later on. So it's a funny story, I think. Like,
it is, and now we're like the bestest of friends. So
yeah,
podcast together, talking about time and dispatch. So cool. So cool.
And what about you?
Man, I started in dispatch in 2018, and I originally wanted to go to school for to be a cop. I was a law enforcement or criminal justice major, and I graduated. And like everyone who graduates college, you automatically start working in something that you did not get a degree in.
Right. Amen. Right.
Is accurate. So I started, I did some social work. I was coaching basketball, and I was trying really, really hard to do that full time. So I really had, law enforcement, criminal justice kind of on the back burner. And then a couple years passed. I was tired of being broke, and I just started applying for different jobs, probation, parole, dispatch, parole, probation, all the things, patrol, and dispatch just kind of landed first with the Sacramento Police Department. And I thought, hey, this is good. I'll get in the door. I'll learn, about law enforcement, policing, how it looks in an actual police department, and then I'll go patrol. And I just kind of never left.
Yeah.
So you get cozy with your heater and your access to a bathroom, and you're just like, I'll stay
wow.
here.
You mean you have heaters?
we didn't have little table heaters. And in Sacramento, it gets hot out there. I like to keep it cool. So
that's
man. How many calls does that center? I can only imagine.
Yeah, that was a extremely busy center. I mean, you're pretty much, call to call probably until maybe 2 a.m. For the most part, most of the time. And, it's a high crime, violent crime call center. I mean, if you're not working a shooting a day, it's one of those. It's a good place to start, in the sense that you're getting a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Always.
Man.
Bet. Do you guys did they dispatch everything, police, fire, and rescue, or just law
No,
enforcement?
we only did police. We're so inundated with law enforcement stuff that fire has their own department out there
Gotcha.
as well. And that's kind of always been my setup with both the departments I've worked at. It's just police, only police. I'm cool off of people throwing up and me having to do it.
Right.
My baby. I don't want, shout out to the medical dispatchers out there because you folks, you guys got it going on.
Well, I'd much rather be doing the patrol thing myself.
Yeah.
But I was cross-trained to do it all. Our agency that me and Anna worked at together did, for the most part, mostly everybody was starting to get cross-trained and everything. I think they pretty much are at this point, or more so now than they were back in the day. But
so were you guys the PSAP? And okay.
Mm-hmm. And then we would transfer if we had any like fire calls or anything, we would transfer them over to them.
Gotcha. The first agency I worked for, we only dispatched fire rescue, but we were the PSAP. And so we transferred law enforcement calls. Tell me what a treat that is.
Yeah, that's
when people are and they're just being crazy, and you're like, sorry, I gotta transfer you.
Right? Like, I'm sorry, who stole what? Bye.
Right.
Me, I'm like, you put what where? Okay, bye.
Right. But it was a shock for me going to one that did everything and like having to sit through those law enforcement calls in the beginning, and I'm like, oh no, like these people. So, yeah, it was interesting.
It's a whole different, and it's just so funny, like the different disciplines or the different ways departments do things, how it's all the same, but it's all so freaking different. Like,
it is. And we're finding that out now that we're getting more guests on the show and stuff. And like, you can ask the same questions like to each different guest, and you just get, sometimes it's the same answer, but a lot of times it's great how everybody has their own little stories or ways of things.
What do you guys think is something that about our job, our line of work, that people just out there in the real world just have no idea or could never imagine, or if you wanted them to know this thing, it's one thing, it would be this?
Well, I always want them to realize that we're human, and we're also not the ones responding to the calls. That's huge, because they think you're taking the call, responding to the car. Like, no, I'm not driving the police car. I'm not.
I know. I'm like,
truck.
this is just on the phone, like, yeah, and then,
I mean, but yeah, just that, we have feelings too. We have families to go home to. Like, we understand, but it's just, we go through the emotions with you, even though it may not seem like it affects us. Everyone thinks, oh, you're a dispatcher, you have to stay strong, this and that. Well, yeah, we do, but at the same time, we still have the emotional roller coasters that we deal with afterwards, or even during, but you can't really show those obviously. But so that's my biggest thing.
I really want people to know where they are. That's
Well,
because
a little louder for the people on the back to listen.
Yeah, and it's not CSI, right? Like, we cannot locate you to that like degree of accuracy, right? And especially in highly populated areas. If we have some rural areas, so if you're out in the rural areas, okay, the houses are freaking 2 miles apart, I can pretty much guesstimate where you're going to be.
Yeah.
But in these apartment buildings, or Sacramento, I don't know, you could be anywhere. How many houses are in a 1.5 mile radius, right? Like, you could be anywhere. So that, and I don't know if you have this so much because you don't have rural areas. Not probably don't have country like we have country, but
no, it's not
people,
Spain.
the country people are, you know, like, I mean, I lived here 35 years. It's, you know,
It's Mr. Johnson's place.
Mr. Johnson's farm, you know, the trailer at the back. Well, look, I don't know Mr. Johnson, and I don't, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So yes, and like people traveling on the interstate,
Mhm.
there's a mile marker every 10th of a mile. It's green.
Yeah.
Look at it. You know, like it's so difficult, and people get so frustrated
Mhm.
with us sometimes trying to find out what their location is.
Yeah.
But if I don't know where you are, I can't send you help.
Mhm.
So that's my thing. Like, we are human. We are trying to figure out where you are. We need your help
Yeah.
to do that so we can get you help as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of like the point, right? The point of me asking these questions is to get you help. Like I'm not
Right.
sending help, and just technology isn't always accurate. It isn't always dependable. You know, when I think about
Right.
location and I think about like I don't know why this comes up, but I'm just gonna tell it because it's coming up for me. We have Shot Spotter. Do you guys have a Shot Spotter out where you are? So it's this
No.
technology that they have in the cities a lot of times, especially in areas where there's a lot of gang violence and things of that nature. And they'll put these sensors on houses, on poles, things like that. And when
Really?
gunshots go off, it'll
Wow.
send notifications to the company reviews it and sends us like a notification. It'll say like 10 shots, semi-automatic weapon, or whatever, high power, you know, that type of stuff. It drops a call. We send officers to check the area to see if there's someone's been shot, if there's evidence of a shooting, things of that nature,
Well,
right?
that's badass.
Right?
Yeah,
It's really cool tech. It's unfortunate that we need it, but it's really cool
Yes.
tech, right?
That
But so it gives us this location. So we have a general location of where the shot spotter went off. Now it doesn't always mean that it is gunfire. It could be a car backfiring, could be fireworks, but they have people who like listen to the call and the recording and like to try to determine best if it's possibly or is right.
right.
wow.
Officers go out, they check the area for this activation, and it was like 20 shots, semi-automatic, and we're like, oh, we're gonna find something when we get out there. Nothing. Not a case in, not people looking worried, nothing. Just crickets. Maybe an hour, maybe not even an hour, but let's say 30 minutes goes by. Get a 911 call. It's now like 2 a.m. And guy goes, I came over to my friend's house, and in my head, I'm like, yo, friend, it's 2 a.m.
Right.
Right.
Whatever. Okay, you came over to your friend's house. Yeah. And I went up to her door, and there's bullet holes everywhere. And she has bullet holes all over her.
Ugh.
And the shot spotter had gone off in an apartment complex at someone's door. They shot up the door, and we couldn't find it because though we had a location, it was embedded in these apartments, and it was, you know, we didn't have a caller per se, you know, like we hope we do, but it's only as good as the information provided, right? So we were there, but we didn't know they were in an apartment, whatever, with multiple gunshot wounds. So
Wow.
location is so important because that's where the help needs to go.
Right. And the fact that there aren't enough officers to get out and foot patrol that. I mean, I'm imagining you're talking several hundred apartments in a complex, right? How many calls did you have stacked at that point?
Oh, a lot. I mean,
right. So you can't.
Hours.
Right. It's like 911 hangups, right? I mean, you can't. Somebody can't get out and foot patrol that area and check every apartment and check it. It's just time. They can't do it. There's too many calls.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing people just don't realize is how many calls for service, law enforcement especially, does. I mean, it's craziness.
Mhm.
I'm not sure in our agency and where we are in Virginia gets as much as, there where
Oh no, I'm sure not. But I mean,
but I mean, still the same,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm at a much smaller agency now, and the problems that we have at this department are just sunshine and rainbows compared to my old community that I served. So, but
yeah.
even in this community where it's a wealthier community, it's a community where there isn't high rates of violent crime, and yet people are flabbergasted when I tell them I have no units available. And I've
Right.
even had people tell me, like, what do you mean? This is XYZ city. There's no crime here. And I'm like, well, we're talking. You're trying to report something. Someone else probably is. Like, what do you mean there's no crime here? Like, it's just the lack of connection that happens sometimes with our callers is unfortunate. I try to give grace too, because I mean, we're in it every day. We
Right.
talk to people every day about the same stuff, and the everyday citizen doesn't have that same burnout that we have with the ridiculousness. But this is why we're having these conversations. This is why we're
That's
creating
right.
these podcasts, because it is important for the education factor.
It is, for sure.
Definitely.
Well, I'm going to throw in a question for you, Ashley. What do you feel are some of the key qualities or skills that are essential for someone that's working in dispatch or public safety in general?
Oh man, you have to have patience. And I don't mean patience just in the sense that you can let someone just yell at you and be okay with it for a while. I mean patience in the sense that you have to be okay with picking up things slowly, really being critiqued and being trained repetitively, having to have the same conversations over and over again with different people. And yeah, there is that factor of, combative callers, rude callers. But patience is such a big component of this job because people will get on your last nerve.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
And it's valid, and we're human, and you have to have the ability, on that recorded line to keep it calm, cool, and collected, and just be able to kind of work through it. But I definitely think that patience factor helps you through training, because training is the toughest part
It
of
is.
this job. I mean, you're volunteering to have a stranger basically tell you you're doing that wrong for
Right.
for like 12 months. And
Yeah.
like you feel like you did the call perfectly, but there's still always something, right? There's always something your trainer's gonna write in your DOR. So
Yes.
you're just consenting to critiques, and it's tough. I mean, I
It is.
lateraled and I wouldn't do it again.
I did too, and I felt very fortunate. I mean, my trainer at my second agency was good. I mean, he was a different personality than my first trainer, but I was fortunate that my first trainer was who he was.
Mhm.
And I think also that agency, when we were training, there were 3 of us in there. But when I was released, there were only 2 of us.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
it was nice, because then when you make a mistake, it's just between the 2 of you.
I know.
Right. When there's, 8 of you in the room and you get called out,
Mhm.
you have to have that humility too,
Yeah.
like the patience, but also the humility that sometimes you're going to get called out in front of everybody because it's a critical situation
Yeah.
and somebody needs a piece of information maybe that you didn't get,
Yeah.
and you just have to be able to accept it and go, I won't forget next time.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I think I was fortunate in my first agency that I had that intimacy. And I mean, God love him. He was a patient and kind soul.
We have been our traders. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
I don't know how the folks trade me did.
Yeah.
But and I don't know if you had this or not, but I mean, and I know in our region where we are, it's pretty common that there's going to be a time when you're going to be short staffed and you're going to get thrown to the wolves.
Oh yeah.
Right. So you also have to expect that.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely, I mean, I went from, you know, the larger agency and SAC to this agency where, yeah, we're down to 2 is our minimum. We're actually, we're doing really well. We're fully staffed. And during the day, we have up to 4 or 5 with a supervisor. But yeah, going from a center where I had like 20 people on the floor with me to it's just me and the homie. If it hits the fan and I'm the only one on phones, we're both doing, you know, phones and radio. Like it's a whole different ball game. And I never thought that I would be able to do that. But you know, here I am, you know, 2 years into this new agency, and yeah, you know, you just kind of just do it. You just like I said earlier, just keep typing.
Right. Keep answering the phone.
And the longer you do this job, you know, the more you just learn how to figure pretty much everybody out, whether it's who you're working with, the people that are calling. Like we wear so many different hats, and it's really cool how it all works out, and you just kind of do it. And then afterwards you're like, damn, I really just did all that.
Yeah. And like when you're in it, it's just, you know, they always do the octopus, you know, dispatcher, like comparison. But like when it's really popping, and especially when it's you and just another person, you really are just like,
it is really like that.
You're really just like, I got this, you got that, you call them. All right, I'm doing that, you know, and and at the end, you're like, dude, we're good. We did it. With that, everything's okay. You good? Like, 6 hours. I got to pee. I'll be right back.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Those are the best when you're like, I just have to pee. I don't only take me 30 seconds. I swear.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No. I literally like last night or 2 nights ago, I went to the bathroom and then I came back and I just went pee. It was not a long adventure. It was a very short one. And I sat down and my coworker was entering like a hot call, and I was like,
what are you doing?
Really just ring? Like it hadn't rang for hours. Like we were chilling. And I literally got up, door closed, phone rang, came out, sat down, we were in it. I was like, oh man.
Here we go.
Here we go. Glad I did though. You know?
Yep. I always tell people, if you're sitting there and it's Q word and you have to pee, don't be lazy. Get your tail up and go, because when you're sitting there
on your bladder, they're like,
exactly, because it's gonna pop off and you're gonna be sitting there for 6 hours. Wishing you had gotten up.
Because then your ass is gonna start sneezing and coughing, and you know,
and you know they ain't gonna get you a new chair. You gotta sit there.
Right.
So
do you guys remember any like hot calls or like wild calls for service that stick out to you? Or
I mean, I've had a few back in the day that I would call good calls, but they really weren't good calls, because you know, when good calls to us, not that we want anything bad to happen to anyone, but yeah, I had some officer like an officer involved shooting that was actually a canine, which I'm huge into German Shepherds and just dogs in general, and so that was really tough when he got shot. And then I had another officer that actually was killed in the line of duty while we were on shift. That was tough. That was like when I hadn't been in dispatching that long. And that was actually, I believe, the first real awful incident that I actually had the channel for. And that will always stick with me. Like, certain things, even to this day, I can just hear people's voices and that kind of thing. But yeah.
Early in my career, we had an officer involved shooting where our officer passed away during a domestic violence call.
Mhm.
And I think there's a lot of people out there who are looking to get into this line of work, who do this line of work, who maybe don't have this conversation with themselves. The possibility of the worst day, and the worst day happens. And even in my academy, I remember them telling us, like, we haven't had an officer die in the line of duty here for 20 some odd years. And then after we graduate that next year, is when our officer was shot and killed on a call. And you just never know when it's going to happen. And hopefully you never do experience something that real, that intense. But it does happen. It is something that I think dispatchers carry really heavy, because like that's our thing, right? It's like it's our job to get you home. It's our job to make sure you go home, even though we can't be out there physically. And when that doesn't happen, it does carry heavy on us.
It does, very much so.
It does. And I think that's another thing that the general population, and even I think, public safety, law enforcement, fire rescue people, they don't always understand that we have that mentality. Like, we do take on the responsibility of it's our job to get you home. Like, even if you say it's not, right, we still have that, I had a firefighter Mayday, and the roof collapsed. Had nothing to do with me, right? But it was in the middle of a huge storm. It was a chore even for they were the first unit on scene, the incoming units to get there, because there were so many trees blocking the roads. And I know that it's not going to be, my husband's a firefighter, so I know the statistics. I know how quickly they have usually to get them out, right? And I know that they're probably not going to get there in that amount of time because of what's happening. And I didn't know that particular firefighter from Adam, really, other than to have talked to him on the radio. But you still feel responsible. And, luckily there were some firefighters who were on vacation who happened to be a few houses down and managed to commandeer a tractor and came and helped. And they managed to get him pulled out. But yeah, they don't really understand that that is the way we feel that responsibility, and we feel a responsibility to the citizens too, when they're on the phone with us and they're in a shooting or, a fight or whatever it is, we do feel that responsibility. It's just that we can work through it.
Right. Because yes, we only have our ears basically, but everything that you're saying, or, whether you're a unit that's talking on the radio or a citizen in the phone, like, we are constantly processing everything that's being said, plus doing everything else. But, we're painting this mental picture of what the units or what you're seeing. And that's another thing that folks don't really get either. Like, yeah, we don't see it, but we're hearing it, and we can paint some pretty, vivid, awful pictures with what information we're, obtaining.
And sometimes even the information we're not, right? Like sometimes less information just lets that imagination run rampant. And I don't know, but I like to read, so my mind likes to make up scenes all the time. So,
exactly.
It can get away from me a bit, for sure.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than on a domestic or a traffic stop. Doing I don't know if you guys know, we always did the first status check was 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
And not getting a response.
Yeah.
Every freaking time, even if you know it's the guy who doesn't answer his damn radio,
That part. Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
You're still every time you're like, son of a,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
because your mind is just like
Yeah.
XYZ could happen, in the
Especially
blink of an
this day
eye.
and time, this world,
Yeah.
as crazy as it's getting each day. Like, I
It's
mean,
true. And that's why we have to follow the policy, whatever the policy is. I mean, I would say standard probably is like, hello, no answer. Hello,
right.
no answer. Beep, hello. Okay, people are going code 3. We're coming to you. Beeper's on. And then the guy comes up. Hey, is that for me? Like, yeah,
Right. Oh, sorry, dispatch.
got the helicopter overhead. Everybody's over there. But the one time you don't follow policy is going to be the time that something has happened, right?
Right.
So
Mhm.
I know for, the officers listening, watching the reels, the TikToks, things, and we make the jokes about the stuff. And we have that kind of relationship with patrol and dispatch. And it's like, we have to do these things for that one time that you don't answer because you are
Yep.
being harmed, because you were hurt. That's why we have to turn the beeper on.
That's right.
When we know that you don't listen and you're fine, but I still got to do the thing. So it's
That's
just one of
right.
those things that comes with the job.
Yep. For sure.
But you did say something earlier, Anna, that I wanted to highlight again is that, when you're off your unit, your firefighter had the Mayday and you said, I don't know that that firefighter, I wouldn't be able to pick him out walking down the street. This is a reality that I had with my officer who was shot and killed because I was such a large agency. I mean, we don't know. We don't see these people. There's like 12 substations,
Right.
but there is just a connection, even though I don't know them, that there's a level of responsibility, there's a level of care, there's a, that happens, that forms just from existing together in the same world realm, doing these things together that I don't think I realized until I got in this line of work and unfortunately had that incident with our officer.
Yep.
Right.
It's the
Yeah, being on that same frequency, that same megahertz, right? You just like, I don't know. But is for me that I actually have some friends in that fire department. And so one of my friends, actually the battalion chief and I that were working that night, and he was an acting battalion chief. He was the on-scene commander. He didn't hear the Mayday when it initially came out. So I went to confirm it, and I could tell when there were crickets when I asked him that he didn't hear it. And, he's like, if you heard a dispatch, call it. And so a friend of mine is friends with him as well, and introduced us, and we're still good friends. Like, and always, like, whenever we're at events or something that, it's always a hug and, hey, you're like my favorite person because we went through this, this thing together. And so, but that's, I mean, I didn't know him either before that incident. So, but that, we have a connection over that.
Yeah.
So,
all right, enough of the sad stuff, you guys.
Right.
We're not here to talk about all sad stuff. Let's. Did you guys go out for cats and trees? Do you guys do that?
oh my God, the cats and trees.
Is that?
Yeah,
I remember
that's
one of my
definitely a
early.
thing.
You do?
Oh no, we don't.
Oh, you
because
know?
of-
Okay. I thought it was wild when I got a 911 call during training for a cat in a tree. I literally looked at my trainer. I was like, "Are they honking me? Like what?" Cat
Right.
And then she was like, "Yeah, transfer them to fire." I was like, "We're gonna send someone else to get a cat on the tree."
No, we say put some cat food at the bottom of that beef and call it a day.
Well, except for
Well, I think
Kacey, that
recently, though-
incident that was about a year ago. Right, maybe it wasn't a year. It's probably only been 6 months now. Whatever. It was
Yeah.
all over social media. Took
That is
off.
true.
This lady posting about her cat being stuck in a tree. I mean, it went wild. And so finally, they sent fire rescue and animal control out there.
We gonna take this cat with us.
Right. And do you know that as soon as they started to put out that ladder, that cat jumped out of the tree?
Oh my God. The cat was trying to get away from that person.
Probably. He's like, this crazy lady will not leave me alone.
Like, this
I'm-
bee is stressing me out.
I
Right?
don't even know her. Who are you?
Right. He's probably some feral cat and she's trying to tame it. Right. I
Oh
mean,
my
yeah.
God.
So that was the first time because we would always, say no. And occasionally back in the day when we had more volunteer firemen, and they would sometimes, if they called the station directly, like some of the country people would do that, they would maybe go out and be like, oh, it'll probably get down, or whatever. But
Yeah.
generally, no, we didn't until that one time it was probably last year, but it's not been that long since that
It was
Power
happened.
of social media,
After my
everybody.
time, for sure.
The power of social media. Yes, after your time.
Yes, it was after my time, for sure.
You know what call I will always enter, and we don't always get someone to go out on it, is the ducks in the storm drain. I will drop that every single time. Please go save the duck out of the storm drain. I guess there's, at least out here, there's an actual department, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, that you can call and they respond out. And the thought is that we created this thing for them to fall into, so we got to go get them out.
Okay.
Aw.
I don't know the name of the department off the top of my head. I'd be like trying to search it in my notepad or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, there's a whole department that goes out for like ducks in a storm drain. I'm sure they do more than that, but for me, that's what they
Right.
exist for.
Yes, definitely save the ducks, y'all, because I have ducks here on my farm, and I love my ducks.
You have ducks? Okay, so Claudia,
Yes.
my fiance, is appalled that when we have a house, I'm just going to show up with a duck one day. And when I say duck, I mean two, because they have to have a friend. So
Right.
I'm just going to show up with ducks. And it's just one of those things that we've agreed to disagree on. It's just going to happen. It's going to be my one forgivable act. I'm just going to have
Yeah.
ducks. It's going to be fine.
Oh, they're a lot of fun to watch, but they are messy when they're little.
Oh, see? Oh,
But
they're so cute.
yes, very therapeutic for sure. Yes.
What are your ducks' names?
I don't name them because they probably will end up on somebody's plate at some point in time. But not if I have anything to do with it. But
I was like, my brother and sister-in-law moved to Colorado, and they had animals for a little while. And I always told them, like, look, when I'm here, if you guys start like eating these things,
yeah.
I can't eat the farm food. Okay, like everything has to be store-bought. If I met the thing, I can't. Don't feed it to me. Just I'll do takeout. I'm not built for that life.
Way.
I'm just not. I'm not built for it.
I'm not either. No.
Girl, I don't even eat the fresh eggs.
Oh.
Like, I still buy eggs from the damn store. Like, I just can't do it.
Oh my gosh. I probably do an egg. I'm not gonna lie, I probably do an egg. But the meat, I can't do the meat.
Definitely not. Me neither.
Oh, that's funny. I can definitely do the eggs. Yeah.
So where you got? You said, did I hear Virginia? Am I making that up? I could be making that
No,
up.
Yeah.
we're in Virginia.
Virginia. Okay, so I just came back from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh my gosh.
And while I was there, they had a tornado.
Ugh.
watch.
Oh yeah. Whew.
And then, so I was actually out there with Halcyon from Denise Amber Lee Foundation doing some stuff, and this tornado watch happened in, California here. I'm like, why am I here during a tornado? She's like, there's not a tornado. I'm like, it's a tornado. There's wind, there's thunderstorm. It's a damn tornado. And so then I go home, hit the airport. I'm like, all right, survived, avoided the tornado. The next week, have you seen these tornadoes that have been in Lincoln, Nebraska? Touchdown. I said, look, I'm not saying my future is predicting weather, but I feel like
you
might
definitely
be there for me.
lucked out on that. Those poor folks.
Oh my
that way.
gosh.
It's awful.
Terrible. And just this is how we go back to dispatching, like how things are so different. Like California, we ain't dealing with a tornado. There's no tornado weather. There's no watching for stuff. There's no setting off sirens. Like that doesn't exist. We have fires, and that's kind of maybe our seasonal thing. That's maybe comparable.
Yeah.
Maybe. But the fact that you got to have weather like that.
Yeah. No, they can have that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had an earthquake here years ago. That was not cool.
See, I went to school in Iowa for a little bit, and all the Midwest folks told me, they're like, I don't know why you're afraid of tornadoes, Ashley. And I was like, well, your sister's house got picked up 2 years in a row, so I don't know why you're not afraid.
Right?
Yeah. No.
But they were so scared of earthquakes. They were like, you never know when they're going to happen. I was like, they never do. They don't happen yearly. They don't happen seasonally. Right. There's a big one day. Hopefully not anytime soon. But tornadoes, that stuff is every year. I don't know.
Yeah, no. I don't want no weather.
I grew up at the beach, and the East Coast beach, right?
Yeah.
And so we had hurricanes, and that's all fine. I can deal with a hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
But look, I don't do tornadoes either. And
stay in the water, right?
No.
Not all the time. Not all the time, but
a lot of the time. Like,
yeah, the East Coast is, we're used to them, and so it's fine. But like the tornado thing, I'm not down with that. And the earthquake thing, you talk about East Coast people, like I didn't even know what was happening. I was like, what is going on? Like, is it a train? I don't even live near train tracks. What is that? Like,
I feel like they recently just had one in New York or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a bunch of memes. And when it's your thing, like when it's your normal, you don't realize it's not someone else's normal.
Right.
So like when everyone was like, okay, California, we see what you're talking about. Like, we get it now. I just didn't compute that side never experienced an earthquake, like no idea. I skipped a lot of my science classes. It's fine.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, weather, like folks who have to deal with snow, blizzards, like dispatching through that. Gosh, my unit's getting to a call just from traffic, let alone because there's a blizzard. Like, I couldn't imagine,
No, we have had plenty of those here for sure.
Yeah. And then like having to stay on a 911 call, and like, while people are trying to, I don't know, dog sled there. I don't know what the dogs are, but I mean, just it's crazy. I mean, this job, what we do, what we talk about, why we create the things that we're creating. There's reason, there's purpose, and it's definitely things we could all learn from, right?
It is for sure. And this ended up, like, our podcast was started. Anna had thought about it, and there's like 4 of us that became really good friends. We were all on shift together, and Anna had brought it up, and the other 2 were like, eh. And then I was kind of, because I thought she was actually joking. And
now look at you.
And then I guess we're 2 more of the like wilder ones, I guess, crazier ones out of the 4 of us. And then she, said it again. I was like, well, screw it. What do we really got to lose,
Mm-hmm.
And we've had the best time. Well, at least I have. I'm pretty sure she has too. Because a co-host like myself.
Here we are.
Yeah, it's gotten us closer, and I look forward to it, and just networking and getting out there. We're still new, but still.
It's so cool to talk to people all over the country, and the different stuff that everybody does. And like, I'd never heard of ShotSpotter, but that's awesome. Like, like, there's so many things out there, and we all do things differently. And when you get like an out-of-state warrant and you got to call in,
Straight up.
the more people you've talked to, like, I think the less dumb you feel. You're like, oh, you know.
Yeah. And even though we're both retired from dispatching, like we're still like in it, you know, that's part of our podcast name, the tethered part. We're still tethered to it. Like we're never going to be mentally or out of it, you know, like once you're in it, like you're in it. And so yeah, I mean
look, we've blown through this hour like
yeah, we
like,
have.
I
Like,
looked down and I was like, look, we're already coming to the end of
Yep.
this podcast.
Yeah.
Is there anything you folks want to say? Want to tell the people? Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should tell everyone listening on our respective channels where to find us, where to find your podcast, where to find you on the socials, and all that good stuff.
Well, we're pretty much on every platform, like Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube. We do have a Facebook and Instagram page as well. And we also have email that's podcast 911delta at yahoo.com if they want to give a shout out. And
we're pretty much 911 Delta tethered for life everywhere else. So you can easily find us.
And for our folks listening to our podcast, go ahead, Ashley. We need to get it out there for you too.
Yeah. So my podcast is Let's Talk Dispatch. All of my socials and websites is the Raspy Dispatcher, theraspydispatcher.com. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and all other platforms that my little Buzzsprout pushes out to. So pretty much anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can check out the Let's Talk Dispatch podcast. And it's on the YouTube channel as well. So I definitely enjoy creating content, talking to folks, and spreading the word that the world needs more dispatchers.
Amen to that.
Yes, indeed.
And we thank all of the dispatchers. And also this Saturday, I'm just going to throw it out there, May 4th is Firefighters Day too, National Firefighters Day. So shout out to all those firefighter folks.
Heck yeah.
Hopefully they will enjoy their day, and it'll be Q word. I won't say it.
You ain't gonna come back here and say it was our recording. No. Awesome. Well, I guess with that, we are officially signing off for our first joint episode. So I'm excited. This is so much fun, guys. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is totally you folks pulling this together. So thank you.
Yes.
Well,
thank
you for entertaining us. It's been fun.
It has.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Dispatch podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the show, or maybe even submitting your own story, you can do all that and more at theraspydispatcher.com. Until next time, stay raspy.